Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Scottie Pippen, he's got a book coming out, and his way to promote the book is to go completely scorched earth against Michael Jordan, his former teammate, guy he won 6 championships with. So Scottie Pippen has decided, Sap, that if he's going to sell books, the best way to possibly do that is to elevate himself as much as possible and try to tear down Michael Jordan as much as possible. A method that I don't think is going to find a lot of success long-term for Scottie Pippen.
Well, I'm here to support Scottie Pippen.
That's great.
Yes, there's me,
somebody.
Nick Wright, and somebody else out there. There's 3 of us. The thing is that this is Scottie Pippen's response to The Last Dance. Now, we remember when The Last Dance came out nearly a year and a half ago, we were just starved for content because the pandemic was in full force. There were no games on, and they dropped that 10-part series. It was riveting, but I think the only athlete in the history of the United States that could have pulled that off without getting blowback was Michael Jordan. Because to me, after watching 10 episodes, you take away from Michael Jordan is that he's a major league douchebag. But because Michael Jordan is so beloved that people don't say that. I think Scottie Pippen, if he's trying to pick a fight with someone, would have a better chance if he decided to pick a fight with Santa Claus, Mother Teresa, and the Lord Jesus Christ. I think he'd have more success than trying to pick a fight with Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan is more beloved than those people. So that's the issue there, is that he's trying to push back in his own way with this book. Scottie Pippen needs an advocate. Like, he's not good at this, because I don't think that's really in his DNA. I don't think he's a confrontational guy. Jordan was a confrontational guy. You remember in The Last Dance, it did not look good for Scottie Pippen, right? I mean, it came across as Michael Jordan won 6 titles, and anybody else that won was along for the ride, whether it was Phil Jackson or Jerry Krause, the general manager, or any other player, especially Scottie Pippen. Well, I'm here to support Scottie Pippen, Jet, because if you look at Michael Jordan's accomplishments, and they're legendary without question, and we all know that I think LeBron James is the better basketball player than Michael Jordan. I'm not going to get into that in this podcast, but Jordan spent 5 seasons without Scottie Pippen. Do you know what his team's record was during those 5 years? 3 with the Bulls and 2 with Washington. And I know no one ever wants to bring up Washington, but he did go there. 182 and 228. 182 and 228, 5 losing seasons, 3 with the Bulls, 2 with the Wizards. Made the playoffs 3 times, went 1-9 in the playoffs. 1-9 in games, not series. He won 1 playoff game without Scottie Pippen. So he needed Scottie Pippen. And again, Jordan developed into even a greater player than he was in his first 3 years in Chicago. I'm sure he would have won some championships without Scottie Pippen. They would have had some other player on the roster that would have, helped him, but not to the point that Scottie Pippen helped him. I mean, Scottie Pippen to me is the ultimate Robin, because he was comfortable being the number 2 guy. He did all the dirty work. He was a great defender, great rebounder, could pass, and could score when necessary. So he was the perfect Robin. I don't think Scottie Pippen's trying to put forth that he's a greater player than Michael Jordan. No one would buy that. But he's just like, don't forget me. I was pretty important in this run, and this is his way of doing this. Now, maybe he needs an advocate out there. I'm available, and that's part of what I'm bringing forward here, is that Jordan needed Pippen to win those championships. Jordan was the guy. I get that. But Pippen was also a key component to those championship teams.
You hate it when people say that about, Kyrie or Dwayne Wade or,
not really.
Anthony Davis.
No.
Sap. I'm going to say that LeBron doesn't win a title if he doesn't play with any of those guys.
You're probably right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
but I'm just saying, you can play this game with anybody, right? Nobody does it by themselves.
My point is that he had the same guy for all 6 titles, and he didn't win anything without Scottie Pippen. LeBron at least went to the finals a couple of times with Cleveland, where, I don't know, was it Mo Williams was his best teammate, and, Timothy Mozgov was his best teammate another time. So he did at least carry his team to the finals twice without a true number 2 player. Right. So,
but I don't want this to be a debate about Jordan versus LeBron, because we've done that a million times and we'll continue to do it. But
we're not Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp.
No, in terms of the people who are, are the few people who are advocating for Scottie Pippen today, I think it does all will come back to, they're bigger LeBron fans than Jordan fans, which,
Sure.
that's fine. You're allowed to do that. But I think that's what it comes down to. But in terms of just how I look at it, yeah, he didn't come across great in The Last Dance, but I didn't think he came across that terrible because nothing they said about him was downright
Who are you
inaccurate.
talking about, Scottie Pippen or
Yeah, Scottie
Jordan?
Pippen.
Okay, so I know the big part of it was that he would not go into the game after Phil Jackson diagrammed the play for Tony Kukoc. That was obviously the part that everybody flipped out about.
The getting surgery right when the season started thing too was
Which
another.
Shaquille O'Neal's done on several occasions.
He has too, but we're not talking about Shaquille
Michael
O'Neal.
Thomas did it with the New Orleans Saints. No, but people love. See, here's the thing: is people love Shaq, so no one criticizes him. People don't warm up to Scottie Pippen, so
yeah. Well, Shaq has been the best player on championship teams. Scottie Pippen's never. So I mean, that's there is a difference.
Well, I'm not saying that Scottie Pippen is Shaquille O'Neal, but what I'm saying is Scottie Pippen is an all-time great player. I just think that Pippen is almost to the point where I wasn't just a sidecar. I was a really important component to that. So the toughest part when the Bulls won 6 championships, the series that they were in most peril was in the 93 Eastern Conference Finals against the Knicks. And
right.
They were going for their first three-peat. They were down 2-0, lost the first 2 games in New York. And that's when Jordan went to Atlantic City, gambled, and, kind of abandoned the team for a period of time. Game 3 was essentially a must-win game for the Bulls, right? You can't get down 3-0 and come back. In Game 3 in Chicago, Michael Jordan, the greatest player ever, according to 99.4% of all NBA fans and all pundits, you know what he did in Game 3 of that Eastern Conference Finals? He went 3 for 18 from the floor. Scottie Pippen, the guy who apparently was carried by Michael Jordan across the finish line, 10 of 12, 29 points. In the biggest game of that postseason, hell, probably the biggest game of that entire 3-year run, Pippen was the better player than Jordan. I mean, that's the pushback I have, is that everyone just seems to think Jordan every night went out and scored 45 on 60% shooting, and Pippen was just kind of there. Well, that wasn't the case, and that kind of details that in that big series against the Knicks, which they ultimately won in 6 games. It's like Jordan didn't do this alone. And I think Pippen just wants to be remembered as a guy who was better than just a sidecar.
Yeah.
Jordan, by the way,
I don't think anybody, Seth, I don't think anybody.
Jet, let me just finish.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Jordan constantly referred to his teammates as a supporting cast.
Right.
That was out there all the time. If LeBron ever said that, if anyone else ever said that, they would be chastised. No one ever criticizes Michael Jordan. I think, first of all, they're fearful of the guy because he's a psycho, right? I mean, he's a sociopath the way Kobe Bryant was and the way Tom Brady is. I think people are just frightened of the guy, but don't be afraid to call him out on something that other players would be criticized for. And you can't come out and say, well, it's Michael Jordan, so he's got a whole different set of rules than everyone else. He constantly referred to his teammates as his supporting cast. Like if LeBron ever did that, he would be raked through the coals without question.
Yeah, he would. I think because it would be such a change in sort of the demeanor from LeBron. I don't think Michael Jordan ever put on airs of being anybody different than what he was. I don't think he ever pretended to not be a psycho.
Right.
And so I think at least people, no matter what, respond better to honesty. You're even seeing this with, we're not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I know you don't want to, but I think we're even seeing this with Rodgers and Kyrie. More people were like, well, if he had just done what Kyrie had done and been honest about it, we'd still think he was stupid, but at least he'd been honest. It was the deception that sort of, made people, I think, turn on him more. But it's, to what I'm saying, Sam.
I saw Marcus Spears today on ESPN. He made a great point. He goes, I respect someone who is out front as a racist rather than someone who puts the airs out that he's not a racist, but really is a racist. I can see what you are, and then I can deal with it rather than, geez, I can't believe so-and-so is a racist. They never set those ears off. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
And I can buy that. So, yeah, I mean, whatever it is, Michael Jordan's considered authentic because he's an a-hole and he's comfortable being that guy, where people think LeBron is fake. I don't know. Again, this is more about Pippen. My point being that Jordan gets away with so much that other players get criticized for. And I think part of it is that just people they just are like sheep. They just follow the narrative that he's the greatest player ever. That's not even a discussion. I want to have a discussion for that. And I think Pippen is also kind of chiming in here with his book by saying, don't forget me. I was pretty damn important in those 6 title runs.
Yeah, but I think that anybody who actually seriously follows the NBA and follow the history of the NBA doesn't look at Scottie Pippen as just, a guy who was along for the ride. Maybe people who are, just know about Michael Jordan, they think that. But I think that anybody who actually cares and knows about basketball knows that Scottie Pippen was important to those teams. Again, I watched all the Last Dance. I covered it on AfterBuzz TV, every episode, doing recaps of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he came across as that horrible. Now, obviously, you're going to be more sensitive to it if you're the actual person being talked about in the documentary. But I listen, Jordan obviously came across as sterling because he was in charge of the documentary.
Right.
And so it was always going to have him look great. But I didn't think Pippen came across looking that bad. I really don't. And
here's the thing, too.
Scottie Pippen disagrees with me, but I really, it seemed like, they spent ample time talking about how important he was.
Yeah, but they also threw him under the bus quite a bit with, they talked about Jordan's flu game, and then, it was brought up, well, Scottie had his bad back game and he only scored 8 points where Jordan scored 38 during the flu game. And again, I'm not comparing Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan as a player. I will say that Scottie Pippen had to do more as a player than Michael Jordan. He is equally great as a defender as Michael Jordan. He was a better rebounder, better passer. He did a lot of other things on the court besides score. Now, Jordan did those as well. You don't get to the point of being, in my opinion, the second greatest player ever without being more than just a scorer. But I think when they detailed Pippen refusing to go into the game, that was in the 1994 playoffs. You know who wasn't on that team? Michael Jordan. So why is he chronicling that on a team that he wasn't part of? He wasn't there for 93, 94, and he came back late in the 94, 95 season. That had nothing to do with Michael Jordan, and yet he made that a big part of The Last Dance, showing that Scottie Pippen, was a coward, not a leader, whatever the case may be. He had nothing to do with that. I mean, The Last Dance was supposed to be about 97, 98, the last year together. I get that you can't necessarily do a 10-part series on one season, although I think you could with that team. You get my point that it's almost like, what's this doing in there?
I do, but I think once
anything?
they turned the scope, they talked about his rookie year, Jordan's rookie year and all that sort of stuff too. It wasn't called the Michael Jordan documentary. It was supposed to be about the Bulls. So, I don't have a problem with them including that. And again, it's all true. It's not like that is a made up thing. That did happen with Scottie Pippen. He did.
Oh, I watched the game. He refused to go in. Yeah.
So, those are things that happen. So, and Scottie Pippen has doubled down on it too, and saying, I don't think I did anything wrong in that situation. Right. So it's not like he's, suddenly had a come to Jesus moment and been like, oh yeah, I really should have done something different. So I think he's at his core, he's a little bit of a petty guy, Scottie Pippen. Jordan, we know, is a petty guy. That's fact. That's proven.
But people love that about Jordan, and now we're calling Pippen a petty guy and he's soft.
Because we haven't seen this with Pippen until he's starting to sell books, trying to sell books, He hasn't been that petty guy.
And the book is a response to The Last Dance. I don't think this book comes out without The Last Dance. And again, he's trying to be relevant. Sure, I'm sure he's trying to make money for himself. Not everyone makes $160 million a year from Nike and owns a basketball team.
Right. Well, Pippen
didn't make ridiculous. For us, he made ridiculous money. He never got ridiculous money. The Bulls signed him to this contract that he was the 72nd highest paid player in the league when he was probably the second or third best player in the league. I'd be kind of bitter too.
Yeah.
I'd be bitter at my agent as well. Besides the Bulls, it's like, look, I'm a big part of this, and one guy's, a god, and I'm being treated like a peon.
Yeah. When it comes to contract stuff like that, you're putting pen to paper. That was Scottie Pippen's decision to ultimately sign that contract. So he could be as mad at, the Bulls or his agent, but like ultimately, no one's forcing him to sign that. So, I find a little bit of fault with that. And people can be upset about their contract too, but you are making the decision. No one is forcing you to sign that contract. I just want to read to you the review of the book from USA Today, Sap. Naive, bitter, sad, embarrassing, confusing, jealous, petty, aggrieved, spiteful. Those are just a few words when it comes to word association with Scottie Pippen in his new
I
book,
thought they were talking
Unguarded.
about Aaron Rodgers. I'm
No,
glad
well,
they're not talking
that's
about him.
all. Those are
Scottie
all
Pippen.
words for him too.
And things you could also use to describe Michael Jordan. Many
I
of those
wouldn't.
words.
I
Petty.
wouldn't. I call him petty. I wouldn't call him sad or embarrassing or naive or bitter. I don't think he's a bitter
Oh,
guy. I think he's a petty guy. I don't think those are
bitter
the
guy.
same
You
thing.
saw his Hall of Fame speech. I mean, okay,
That's petty.
That's petty. So I guess he's just the pettiest man in the history of the world because everything seems to fit into that. So, and again, no one's going to give a good review for this book because they don't want to get on Michael Jordan's shit list. I'm not, coming into this with a conspiracy theory. It's
Yeah, but Sap,
no one says anything bad about Jordan because they don't want to get on his shit list. Charles Barkley doesn't even speak to him anymore, and that was one of his closest friends because Barkley said something about Jordan. I mean, again, this is who Jordan is, and he gets cut so much slack where any other athlete that acts the same way, well, he's bitter, he's petty, he's selfish, but Michael Jordan isn't apparently.
But I would say the same thing, Sap, to any. I mean, if somebody wrote a book, if Dwayne Wade wrote a book dumping on LeBron, or if Magic Johnson wrote a book dumping on Kareem, or Kareem wrote a book dumping on Magic Johnson, or Kevin McHale wrote one dumping on Larry Bird, I'd say the same thing. I mean, these guys are all-time greats. If you're going to take shots at them, I'm going to laugh at you because I know what they are and what they were.
But did Magic, LeBron, Larry Bird have a 10-part documentary shitting on their former teammate? I don't think so.
Not yet.
I didn't see it. Well, I don't, again, maybe LeBron. I don't think LeBron does that. I think he just likes to be liked too much that he would never pull that off. Look at Michael Jordan has cameras with the team in 97, 98. That was a long time ago. If someone did that now, that'd be looked at as being, narcissistic.
Well, you don't need it now. You don't need it now.
So you don't need it now because we all
covered.
have cell phones. Yeah, we've got cell phones. But to do that in 1997, 98, to have cameras following the team, you don't think that was a distraction?
And, apparently not. They won the championship.
They won the championship because they were so damn good. And they also, got to play a Jazz team that quite frankly shit their pants every time they were in a big situation. And partly that was because the Bulls, were their laxative because they just couldn't beat that team. Here's another thing too, and this isn't really detailed, I'm not sure in the book yet or whatever the case is. Michael Jordan went off to play baseball. Okay, that's all well and good. He informed the Bulls that he was retiring on October 6th of 1993, less than 2 weeks before the start of the season. I mean, Andrew Luck got lambasted for doing that with the Indianapolis Colts, right? I mean, he came out, I think the third week of preseason, said, I'm all done. And people were like, dude, you should have told us earlier. Now you're putting us in a tough spot. Michael Jordan does it. And it's like, oh, he's going to chase his dream to play baseball. Again, why wasn't anybody talking about that? That's not exactly what a great leader does, or someone who maybe has an inkling that they're going to come back. We knew he was going to come back and play. He wasn't retiring in 1993 at the age of 30. He needed a break for whatever reason. And he informed the team on October 6th. And the season started less than 2 weeks later. That's not good either. But God forbid you bring that up. Well, you don't pick on Michael because he's.
I do think, Sap, if it had happened now, I think he would have been criticized a lot more with social media. I do think he would have. And also, Andrew Luck never won squat. Michael Jordan at that point had won 3 championships.
I know, but so that gives him carte blanche with everything. See, that's the whole
thing. But I'm saying
it
should buy you something, right? It should buy you something.
Yeah, but it's putting Bill Parcells. Okay, Bill Parcells. I can't believe we're comparing Bill Parcells to Michael Jordan, but Bill Parcells was a great coach. I mean, the Patriot fans still chastise him, but he had been a 2-time Super Bowl winner when he did that after the Super Bowl against Green Bay. But he left the Giants in the lurch following the 1990 season. They won 2 Super Bowls in a 5-year period. He retired in May, which is not exactly the best time for a head coach to retire because now you got to go find a new head coach, halfway through the offseason. And he got chastised for that. It's like, why didn't he do this right after the Super Bowl? He waited till May to let us know that he wasn't going to coach next year. He got chastised for that. Jordan, it was a huge celebration when he retired 2 weeks before the start of the season. And it was like, well, the great Michael Jordan needs a break.
Listen, I'm telling you, I think it's having those championships buys you goodwill. It does.
Parcells won 2 titles. That's
one
less
it's a coach versus a player, Sap. I mean,
I know, but that really puts, and he got criticized for that. I mean, I think Bill Parcells was pretty influential in winning 2 Super Bowls. Michael Jordan more so winning 3 titles. He does it, and it's like, no big deal. He couldn't have done that after the finals. And said,
it's
I'm all
New
done.
York versus Chicago. Do you think if Jordan had played his whole career in the Knicks and had the exact same accomplishments and he had left 3 years into it, I think he would have gotten criticized a lot more because that's the way the New York media works.
Everybody is in fear of the guy. That just, no one criticizes him. If you bring up that there's somebody even close to him as a player, people go nuts. It's like
I'm just saying, this isn't the right way to do it, though. It's what Scottie Pippen's doing.
He doesn't know any other way. I mean, I don't think he's getting good advice. He needs advocates out there, and that's what I'm here for, and that's what Nick Wright's there for. We're both there to advocate.
You guys are also advocates of Aaron
Yes.
Rodgers, so those are the people that he has on his side.
No. We both criticized my favorite quarterback, who will not be named until he shows up again in a State Farm commercial. No, I just think that look, it's just so easy to just sit there and say, well, Michael Jordan's the greatest ever, which, look, I think he's the most influential athlete ever. I mean, and he didn't do anything socially to get to that. I mean, obviously Jackie Robinson and Kurt Flood and Jesse Owens did more socially, but because of what Michael Jordan has done to grow the game of basketball and to build that brand, which is just incredible, he's the most influential athlete ever without ever really wading into anything socially, which is pretty amazing. And again, he's, I think, the second greatest basketball player ever. Shoot me, because I think that. But Pippen, I think Pippen is just frustrated, and he doesn't have a real good way to articulate it. So he decides to write a book, hopefully make some money, because again, I don't know what his financial situation is. Again, he doesn't make $160 million a year from Nike.
Right. But here's the thing, Sap. Again, I'd say this about any athlete who's trying to just completely crap on another all-time great athlete. You're just never going to come across as good. And no. To sell a few books right now, he's burning all of his NBA bridges, all of them.
Well, Jordan hasn't spoken to him in years. I think that bridge
that doesn't matter. But I think, a lot of people in the media
I don't think Scottie Pippen is going to go into coaching. I mean, I think that
I don't know what he wants, but I think I can't imagine that he's winning anybody over with this book besides you and Nick Wright.
Yeah, and maybe his ex-wife who has some royalties from it. That might be one of the reasons he did it. I don't know. I just think,
but it's like, again, at least it's not subtle. That's the thing. Like, some parts, the documentary I think was so long, with 10 parts and stuff. The parts with Scottie Pippen got sort of, it wasn't necessarily like super subtle, but like they talked more about ultimately the team winning 6 championships than anything else. Like, I don't know anything about this book other than the parts where Scottie Pippen's dumping on Michael Jordan,
which would appear to be most of the book.
Right.
I mean, that's what's going to get us talking about it. I mean, he's an all-time great player. It's the 75th anniversary. I don't think Scottie Pippen's going to put out a book where, he talked about his maybe he did in the book, growing up where he did dirt poor and playing in college where no one knew the hell where it was. And they when he got introduced at the draft, when they announced his name, they said Scott Pippen. They didn't even know it was Scottie Pippen. So I think he's just kind of looking at it like, just don't forget me. I had a lot to do with what happened with the Chicago Bulls. I don't think anybody in their right mind, I don't think Scottie Pippen thinks he's as great as Michael Jordan. No one's saying that. I just think he wants to be remembered as someone who was a really big part of that.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, and anybody who says otherwise is foolish.
But there are a lot of people out there that it's like, well, he just can't. Jordan just carried this guy along. Like,
sure, but it's not just Jordan that he's took aim at. Remember, he's called a couple months ago. He called Phil Jackson racist and part of promoting the book too. And I'm sure there's other stuff too. So like, he's taking shots at everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to be someone who didn't know how to deal with it back then, and it's almost like PTSD. Now he's dealing with it with anger, and he's pushing back. So and this happens kind of like Nikola Jokic, who we talked about on the last podcast. People getting physical and dirty with him, and all of a sudden he just explodes and decides to go all Chris Farley on Markieff Morris and just ram him from behind. So sometimes that happens. You bottle stuff inside for a long period of time, and then you just become like Mount Vesuvius and it just erupts. So I think that's what he's going through right now.
So get in Scottie Pippen's mind for a second, Sap. Was the goal here for him to sell as many books as possible, or to try to elevate himself more? Because
It's
I
not
don't,
going to work, the elevation part. If anything,
that part,
again,
because if
everybody's gonna
that's what
push
he
back.
thinks is going to
Yeah,
happen,
no.
it's not going to work.
No, it's to sell books. And there's one other person out there that's supporting him, and it's our good friend Kendrick Perkins, who, again, is a LeBron guy. I get it.
Right.
If you're a LeBron guy, you're going to be a Pippen guy. And in fact, their games are somewhat similar. I mean,
No, I'm sure LeBron's going to buy the book.
Maybe LeBron published the book for all we know. I mean, who knows? He's busy freeing OBJ. He's, going to be maybe going on the talk show circuit and supporting Scottie Pippen's book. And this happens, right? If you play with an all-time great, you push back some to make yourself more relevant. This constantly happens. Like in the LeBron Jordan debate, Pippen has said LeBron. And again, because if LeBron's greater than Jordan, then that makes Pippen greater than people think.
Of course.
That's common. We get that. But then everybody that played in the 80s that lost to Jordan says, oh, no, it's not even close. Jordan's greater than LeBron because it elevates them. We couldn't beat Jordan. He was that great. So that's a game we all play, right? I get that. So, yeah, I think how many books is he going to sell? Again, you're bashing Michael Jordan. This is the last person on planet Earth that you can bash and win. Like, I don't recall anybody getting into a pissing contest with Michael Jordan and living to tell about it.
No.
And I certainly don't think Scottie Pippen's going to be that guy either, because people just hold Jordan at some other level.
But does he think he's going to be that guy, Sap? That's more my question. Does he's wrong, but does he, part of him, think that I'm going to come out looking great with this book and these comments?
Maybe it's cathartic. Yeah, he just got this out there.
Maybe
it's just, this is his, instead of spending, a lot of money on psychiatrists, he wrote a book. And if anybody buys it and reads it, more power to it. If he can make himself some money, more power to that as well. He's going to show up on podcasts, and maybe I'll reach out and try to get him. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know what the mechanism would be. I'd love to have him on, but
hey, if we can get him on, I'd let him complain about Michael Jordan for as long as he wants. I would not even push back. Go for it.
Yeah,
Scottie.
He and I would probably get along great together. We could talk about how great LeBron is.
Yeah.
But so he's in a no-win situation. I mean, it's Michael Jordan. As much as Tom Brady's respected, I could see. And look, Tom Brady got along with his teammates better than Michael Jordan did, because Tom Brady understands. Football is different than basketball too. I mean, there's the roster's huge, and the quarterback is more dependent. He needs people blocking for him. He needs guys catching for him. He needs a defense. I mean, Michael Jordan, could go out there and win a game pretty much on his own. We saw that, but he did get a lot of help from Scottie Pippen. That's the only thing. And Pippen, and look, like Skip Bayless, who loves Michael Jordan, doesn't think Pippen's even a top 50 player, which I think is ludicrous. I think he's actually a top 30 player. And to me, a player that's playing today that's similar to Scottie Pippen is Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi's a little better offensively than Scottie Pippen was. It's a different sport now than it was back in the 80s and 90s. I think Pippen's every bit as good, if not even a more versatile defender than Kawhi Leonard. I think he's a better rebounder, better passer. And people are putting Kawhi up there, but Kawhi did win 2 finals MVPs. Pippen didn't win any, because Jordan was going to win MVP of the finals no matter what. Kind of like LeBron's going to win finals MVP no matter what. And for the most part, Brady's going to win Super Bowl MVP even when he's not the best
That's how
player
it goes.
on his team.
Yep.
Just the way it goes, right? You just look at it and go, yeah, Tom Brady. I mean, I thought that someone on Tampa's defense should have been MVP of the last Super Bowl. Maybe Shaq Barrett should have been MVP of that game, because they only gave up 9 points to the Chiefs. And maybe in the first Brady Super Bowl, Ty Law should have been MVP, but it's the quarterback. I mean, we get that.
Like,
so,
like you said, how it
just
goes.
the way it works. I mean, that's just the way it happens. But I just think that there is revisionist history that Jordan, every single playoff game was, 35, 10 and 10, and Pippen had 8 to 12 points and, was just a role player, like a overpraised role player. Well, he was more than that. And I think that that's something that gets forgotten.
No, I don't disagree
he wants people
with you.
to talk about that. I think he just wants people to talk about that. And here's my biggest thing too, is to pump up Scottie Pippen. So Jordan retires in October of 1993. The Bulls win 55 games without Michael Jordan. They won 57 the year before. They did win the title, but without Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen was arguably the best player in the league, finished third in MVP voting, and they won 2 fewer games. It's not like the Bulls went off the rails when Jordan retired.
Right,
They
but no
were
one
still a
cares
pretty
because they didn't
relevant
win a
team. No one
championship.
cares because they didn't win a championship. But it's not like they went from 57 wins championship to 12 wins.
If they had won a championship, that would have put a real dent in Michael Jordan's whole legacy.
Or if Pippen, it would have helped Pippen's legacy. Don't forget, he goes to Portland. They get to the conference finals against the Lakers in 2000. They have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter and lose. If that Portland team wins that series, and I would assume they would have won the championship because they would have played Indiana in the finals. I think they would have beat Indiana. Then Pippen would have one more title than Jordan won without him. And was Pippen the best player on that Portland team? I mean, they had like five guys that were pretty equal. Rasheed Wallace was really good. They had kind of a Detroit Pistons 2004 type team where they had like five guys that were really good. But it
certainly would have helped. Yeah, I mean, obviously.
But yeah, you could say, hey, look, I went to Portland and won a championship, and I beat Kobe and Shaq. Well, he didn't. So that kind of changes things.
Yeah. I think it's all very interesting. Yeah, we'll see if we can get Scottie on the show, Sap. I'm sure anybody that gives him a platform to crap all over Jordan, he'd probably be interested in.
We're here.
So we'll effort it and see if we can get him to do that here. But it is interesting. It's a losing battle. It's a battle if he thinks he's going to win, he is deluding himself. But I'm sure that all the LeBron guys are very happy today, and maybe in 20 years time we'll have a book from Mo Williams crapping all over LeBron. Yeah,
I mean, because to be honest with you, I don't think LeBron's played with anybody as good as Scottie Pippen. Again, that may be LeBron centric. Well, Wade and Pippen I think are somewhere in the same level, top 30 players.
If Anthony Davis plays to his potential,
he's up there too. Yeah. Without question. And the thing is, I think LeBron got Wade a little later in his career, whereas Jordan got Pippen's prime the entire time. So yeah, I mean that's a whole other discussion.
I think LeBron got 1, maybe 2 years of Wade's prime, I would say.
Right.
At least one.
Yep. And then Kyrie, no. Kevin Love, certainly not. And then Anthony Davis, right? If he's there, I'm just waiting. If the Lakers win the title this year, then all the Jordan people are going to come out. Look, he played with all these Hall of Famers. Yeah, Dwight Howard, who's obviously well beyond his prime. Carmelo, who's actually been their best player.
He's been a revelation. He's been fantastic. Incredible.
Yeah,
he might win Sixth Man of the Year, Sap.
He may at this point. They need him to. And Russell Westbrook. Like, look at all these Hall of Famers. Oh, Westbrook is in the way more than anything. So but that's where we're at. That's what you do, and that's why it's still the best debate in sports. Jordan, LeBron. My
Pippen wants it to be Jordan Pippen. Well, that's what he.
I don't even think he's that silly. But the reason I like that is I just want to have that conversation, and I just can't have a conversation with someone who, and this isn't you, but most people I debate this with is like, oh, Jordan was 6-0 in the finals. I go, okay, so that I guess then just put Bill Russell number one because he was 11-1 in the finals. And again, it's the people who think that losing in the finals is like some disaster.
Right.
Like if LeBron gets to 6, which I don't think he will, if he ever got to 6, both would have 6 championships and LeBron would have 6 finals losses, which is better than losing in the first round of the playoffs.
Yes,
sorry, it just is. Right.
That's
I mean,
that's when I won't debate you. I won't debate you on that one.
That's just logic, Jet. And that's when like Skip Bayless and Rob Parker and Ben Volen and the rest of them that think that losing the Super Bowl is, worse than losing in the divisional round. It's like just ask any Olympian that has 4 golds and 4 silvers if that's better than 4 golds and no silvers.
Right.
So that's illogical to think that. But it's my thing with the Jordan LeBron thing is let's have the conversation and don't just tell me 6-0. Or I've had this with people. He's better. I'm like, okay, so that's the end of the argument. Like we're gonna have a discussion, or you're just gonna end it with he's better. Like better what? So that's my point with that. And I don't like necessarily declarative statements. I push back with people that say Wayne Gretzky's the greatest hockey player. I think it's Mario Lemieux. I think Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player. But I'll listen to Babe Ruth or Willie Mays. Absolutely. I'll listen to Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr in hockey. But don't just tell me it's done and it's declaratives are just not fair. They're not good for what we do either, right? I mean,
right. I agree with you on that. I mean, I have my opinions, but I am willing. Listen, I don't like. I agree. I don't like shutting down arguments. I think
don't stop. I mean, I've had this with people when we were at the Herald. He's better. Okay, well, you tell me why? Like, just am I supposed to say that restaurant's better? Why? It's better. Well, is the food better? Is the service better? What please explain to me. I'm not that simple that I'm just gonna buy into it. I mean, look, I think Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor. There may be someone out there that thinks someone's better. There are no declarative statements when we talk about the things we talk about. Maybe the closest. Well, you think the Stones are better than the Beatles, right?
I do.
And there are
But
people
I
out
love
there that
both,
think that way.
and I
But you
don't have
love
any
both,
problem
right?
with you saying one
Right.
or the other.
Right. But most people, like the Beatles fans, are like, oh no, it's not close. Well, I go, yeah, there's a discussion. You can have that discussion. Personally, I like U2 better, but that's a whole other time.
You and Tom Brady.
He is a U2 fan.
He
Absolutely.
is.
That's his.
All right.
That's how old he is. He's a U2 fan.
Yeah. I mean,
He's old. Like, what could you pick?
30
like,
years, he's still going to be a U2 fan. He's still going to be playing quarterback.
I mean, imagine like the rookies coming in at 22 and, they're talking music and Brady goes, I'm a U2 fan. They wouldn't even know what he's talking about unless their parents were huge U2 fans or they're old souls like you are, so
Right.
that would be the only difference.
Yeah. I mean, he's, again, you can, like LeBron, like Jordan, just you throw those guys to the side. You can't compare anybody to them.
No. I think that's where the discussion is. And again, we always like to put Kareem and Bill Russell in there, but I mean, with the debating centers with Renaissance men that do everything on the court. I mean, it's tough to really compare.
Yep. All right, Sap. Well, that's going to do it. Go check out Scottie Pippen's book if you want to read something petty. It is called Unguarded. It is out on bookshelves today, which does anybody actually go and buy a physical copy at a bookstore anymore? You can get it on Amazon, I'm sure. And read everything Scottie Pippen has to say. I encourage everybody to read it, and hopefully we can get Scottie on the show. But it's a losing argument. I'm going to tell you that much, Sap. He's not going to win against Michael Jordan.
But hell no.
We are the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, and as always, we're presented by our friends at Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out their website for lots of great content, and make sure you check out our social media at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer on Twitter. And make sure you type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap to anywhere podcasts are found, or the youtube.com/Jet Stryer. Thanks everybody for listening, watching, whatever, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.